Welcome to Montessori Education. I'm Jesse McCarthy, and this is a talk I gave at Twitter called Montessori the Future. But before we get to Montessori or to the future, we're going to go back in time, about 75 years to April 5th, 1944, and to a quote. "Dearest Kitty, I must have something besides a husband and children to devote myself to. I want to achieve more than that." Now today, this statement isn't so shocking, especially not to many of you working moms out there. But it was a radical statement for the 1940s, and even more radical given it was made by a 14-year-old girl, Anne Frank. Here's another passage from her diary, whom she called Kitty. "Dearest Kitty, I am becoming still more independent. I know what I want. I have a goal, an opinion. Let me be myself, and then I am satisfied. I know that I'm a woman with inward strength." Personally, Anne Frank really impresses me. So I don't know about you, but at 14, I wasn't thinking of myself as some strong, grown individual. Anne did, though. She saw herself as a woman, or at least becoming one. But as you know, Anne wasn't allowed to grow freely like we are, for she was in hiding from the Nazis of her time. Yet that didn't stop her from striving to be her best. This is a photo of her bedroom walls in the secret attic area she lived for over 2 years. On those walls, she put all sorts of pictures, heroes whom she admired, from Hollywood actresses like Ginger Rogers to master artists like Leonardo da Vinci. As she said in one of her early diary entries, "Thanks to Father, who had brought my whole collection of picture postcards and movie stars here beforehand, I have been able to treat the walls with a pot of glue and a brush and so turn the entire room into one big picture." And this kind of adoration and hero worship is not unique to Anne. In fact, all children need heroes. But having heroes is not enough. Children need environments where they can develop into their own future heroes. As an example, here is Anne's classroom when she was much younger, before being forced into hiding. Can you spot her? There she is. Now, if you look closely, you'll also notice that this is not your normal classroom, with a teacher lecturing at a blackboard and children lined up in dutiful rows of desks. No, Anne actually attended a Montessori school, and not just for 1 year. Can you spot her here the next school year? There she is. And she kept going in Montessori. Here she is again, and again the next year. In total, Anne attended Montessori for over 7 years. Otto Frank, Anne's father, had this to say about his daughter's schooling. "Anne was a demanding character. She continually asked questions. When we had visitors, it was difficult to free yourself from her because everyone and everything interested her. It was good that Anne went to a Montessori school." This is Maria Montessori, the woman who developed Montessori education over a century ago. Now, I'm not going to bore you with details about her beginnings, but I do want to share a quote of hers that I found powerful and true. "A man does not just happen. He does not just grow like a flower." But this itself begs a question. What then does it take for a man to grow, for little boys and girls of today to transform into confident, independent young men and women of our future? Now, I believe it helps to have a nourishing environment like Anne's, and like similar Montessori classrooms today. I mean, this one is literally right around the corner from you here at Twitter. It's called Mission Montessori School. But what is Montessori School? Today we're going to go inside, starting with the foundation of Montessori, an objective observation. This is a video of a girl named Ruby, 6 months old, reaching for a toy. As you watch, I'd like you to just observe, see what Ruby does. Here we go. I've seen this video hundreds of times, and I still felt a slight urge to help Ruby. Did you? But Ruby never once showed any sign she needed our help. Incidentally, I cut this clip down to about a minute, but Ruby was at it for over 3 minutes. So the point of this is objective observation can be powerful. It can help us to see beyond our potential biases, to discover things we might not have been able to grasp before. Like in this case, that our aid for a child's healthy growth might sometimes just mean giving her a little space to struggle. Now, on a related note, take a look at this toy-filled environment. Can you spot the child? Now, we have to be careful that the things we offer children aren't taking over their lives. As you saw with Ruby, sometimes all children want is a little challenge. Okay, on to a bit more about Montessori. Specifically, on to 3 key elements of Montessori school. And the first is freedom within limits, offering children a prepared environment in which they are free to do anything they are capable of, yet within the limits we set for them. So this is a video of Carter, 2-year-old Montessori child, making coffee for his dad. A dad who has prepared the kitchen in a limited, child-friendly way so that his son can act freely, and therefore successfully. Here we go.
Huh?
One coffee, Daddy.
Okay. Anything?
Milk. There.
Okay.
No winning, Daddy. Hold on a minute. Okay, turn on. Take a look. Push that.
Is it done?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's it, I think.
Need some sugar. Need some sugar. Need some sugar. Need some sugar. Need some sugar, Daddy. No. Here's
Oh, okay.
coffee, Daddy.
Okay, thank
Coffee,
you.
Daddy.
Okay, so this is what we do. We go cheers. Cheers.
Good.
Cheers.
Now, most people are understandably amazed that a 2-year-old can do this. But the reality is, when we offer children prepared environments where they have the freedom to do things, a toddler making coffee for his dad is no longer really incredible, but rather just another normal morning in the life of a confident, growing boy. Now, I do want to share with you a quick contrast. So years ago when I shared this Carter video, it got a lot of comments. And there was one that really made me chuckle. And I actually appreciated that the woman wrote so honestly. Here it is. Hey, I need to start trusting my princess a little more. I think I just want her to be a baby just a little longer than I care to admit. She just started using a toaster and she's about to be 9 years old. So I think we all need to start trusting our princesses and princes a little more. I mean, imagine if Carter can make coffee at 2, what might he make in the future at 20? Maybe something like these 2 Montessori alumni. Larry Page and Sergey Brin co-founded Google, and they're both former Montessori children. Here is Sergey discussing the impact of his early schooling. I benefited from my Montessori education, which in some ways gives the students a lot more freedom to do things at their own pace, to discover. Some of the credit for the willingness to go on your own interests, you can tie that back to that Montessori education. So freedom within limits isn't just a tagline in Montessori. It can truly aid children to create wonders as they develop. So now on to a second important element of Montessori, first-hand knowledge. In this case, we'll see a video of a young boy named Jackson learning and doing a lot in his Montessori school. Note that when I use the word first-hand knowledge here, this means real understanding, gained by children through being active, and often by literally using their own hands. Okay, here's Jackson doing just that. So clearly Jackson learns and does a lot in his school day. And he did all those things in like 3 hours with very little adult guidance. If you notice, he did have some help from his peers, who range in age from around 3 to 6 years old. All Montessori classrooms, such as Jackson's Casa here, have mixed ages so that the children are able to learn from one another, just as naturally occur with siblings at home. Anyhow, I'm stopping on this photo of Jackson with a friend for a few reasons. One, just because I think it's super cute. It's almost like he's got this little crush on that girl there. But more importantly, for another reason. Take a look at Jackson's hand. Most 4-year-olds cannot hold a pencil like that, which means they cannot write as well as Jackson can. But Jackson wasn't born with an awesome pincer grip or something like that. He developed it through practice. Check this out. What you're watching is a Montessori activity called spooning. In it, a teacher does exactly what you're seeing. She models for a child how to hold a spoon and how to use it to transfer beans from one cup to another. Incidentally, remember Carter? This is where he got those coffee prep skills from. Now, children love this spooning work. And note that while they're having fun, they're learning. So in this case, they're learning how to hold a spoon properly, which later transfers over to their eventually holding a pencil properly, which ultimately is a part of writing. And in cursive, as you see Jackson can do really well. But of course, he didn't learn to write by just playing with beans. He did a lot more work and gained a lot of first-hand knowledge. For instance, he had to learn his letters. And in Montessori, that means the sounds of each letter. So for Jackson, ja, ja, ja for J, a for A, k for C, and so on for his whole name. So by learning the alphabet phonetically, instead of merely memorizing that, the traditional A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so Montessori children are then able to eventually sound out full words on their own. So if you see here, Jackson can independently read all of those. So there's the word in, ten, top, lot, men, leg, kit, and on and on. So that means before entering kindergarten, Jackson can actually read and write, and maybe even flirt a little bit. So Montessori is the real deal. So much learning, so much firsthand knowledge, and enjoyably earned. But what I've showed you is just in language. Here's Jackson doing some math work with a peer. And this is not your ordinary preschool math. If you look closely, you can see that a child like Jackson would count these colored beads, and eventually he'd be able to skip count by, for example, 5 here. So you've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. And the teacher might fold those 5 beads over one on another and say to Jackson, 5 2 times is 10. And she'd continue that till 5 5 times is 25. Well, that is multiplication in preschool. Just so you have a sense of the contrast at this age, or even older, here's a sample of some traditional kindergarten math. You might remember such worksheets from your own childhood. I mean, not horrible, but they don't offer anywhere near the engagement or deep learning that is possible with the unique math materials that Maria Montessori helped develop. And the level of this kind of traditional style work it's a little sad when you think that so many children could be doing so much more and loving the process too, like Jackson and his friend here. Well, on a happier note, take a look at this. Remember, it's one of Anne Frank's Montessori classrooms. So look over here. Now let's get a little bit closer. Do you see what these 2 girls in Anne's class are working on? This is the same math bead chains used by Jackson and his peer. Now, I just find it so cool to think that these girls and Anne Frank had such a wonderful learning environment, just like other Montessori children still do today. And it really can pay off down the road. For instance, here's another successful Montessori child, and I mean very successful. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon. So here's Jeff's mom talking about her son's love of learning in his Montessori classroom. Jeff would get so engrossed in his activities as a Montessori preschooler that his teachers would literally have to pick him up out of his chair to go to the next task. Now, clearly, Bezos kept that attitude and focus going, so all the way to becoming the richest man in the world. And, amazingly enough, he then put some of that money back into early education. In September of 2018, Bezos announced, on Twitter actually, a $1 billion pledge to build preschools for underprivileged children. But not just any preschools. Quote, the Day One Academies Fund will launch and operate a network of high-quality, full scholarship, Montessori-inspired preschools. All right, stepping back into the classroom, let's talk about a third key element of Montessori, grace and courtesy, or how in Montessori we help children to learn how to thoughtfully handle themselves, especially around others. For this, I want to share a story about a boy I observed in a Montessori classroom who experienced benevolence and genuine goodwill. So I was sitting in a Montessori classroom. It was a 3 to 6-year-old classroom called primary. And this was actually a Spanish immersion Montessori, so even one step beyond normal Montessori. But this boy on the right was brand new. And you can imagine being brand new to school automatically is difficult for some children, and it's difficult for parents to separate from the child. But this boy came in, he was crying and bawling. This other boy on the left was doing some activity on his own. So this boy on the right, as he walked by, he bumped into a table. And all those little beads, I don't know if you can see them, but these little gold beads, they all flew all over the floor. I mean, I was sitting there as an observer, and you're not supposed to really do anything. I felt horrible for this boy. But what was so awesome to experience is that this boy on the left, he got up, walked over to this crying boy who had just spilled all these beads and started to help him to pick them up. Okay, there wasn't a teacher saying, go help that boy. He just, on his own initiative, went over and helped to pick them up. And this kind of thing happens a lot in Montessori classrooms. And I've been doing this for like 15 years. I've observed in hundreds of classrooms. And you see this because when children are content in their work and in themselves, they don't tend to start trouble with others. Instead, they naturally aid them. They show benevolence. Which, by the way, is never forced on them by some moralizing adult saying something like, be nice to your neighbors. No, so none of that. Rather, it's modeled by caring teachers. For they know, as the late Montessori educator Silvana Montenero once said, the best thing to offer children is a loving relationship. This never changes throughout life. And such love, such preparation of grace and courtesy, it pays off. Now, I'm not saying all children in Montessori classrooms are kind to one another like this all the time. There is certainly conflict, which allows for building the skill of conflict resolution. And I'm also not saying every boy or girl will excel early like Carter and Jackson did. And I'm of course not saying they'll wind up leading companies like these guys. But all Montessori children are offered a nurturing environment where they are free to develop themselves to their full potential. And that's really the overall point. The young men and women of our future, the truly independent ones with real knowledge and strong character, they do not just happen. Happy, moral individuals do not just grow like a flower. But given the right education and upbringing, they blossom, like my personal heroine, Anne Frank, did. And despite her horrible circumstances. Here is one of Anne's last diary entries from July 15th, 1944. Dear Kitty, it's really a wonder that I haven't dropped all my ideals because they seem so absurd and impossible to carry out. Yet I keep them because in spite of everything, I still believe that people are really good at heart. I simply can't build up my hopes on a foundation consisting of confusion, misery, and death. I see the world gradually being turned into wilderness. I hear the ever-approaching thunder, which will destroy us too. I can feel the sufferings of millions, and yet, if I look up into the heavens, I think that it will all come out right, that this cruelty too will end, and that peace and tranquility will return again. In the meantime, I must uphold my ideals, for perhaps the time will come when I shall be able to carry them out. 2 weeks after Anne wrote these words, she was discovered by the Nazis. Children need environments where they can develop into their own future heroes. I believe Montessori school aids in doing just that. But Montessori is not the end-all answer for a better future. That takes all of our work, including yours here at Twitter. Now, I'm not an active user myself, but I have a huge respect for what you offer the world. A free place where anyone can speak their mind and not fear being shut out or locked up. And imagine if Anne Frank had had a platform with the reach of something like Twitter. What might she have said? How might her life and the whole world be different today? That's why I sincerely think that innovative companies like yours, in combination with innovative Montessori schools, will help bring about a better future for us all. Thank you very much.